YCL's Aubrey Aquino has more.
Unpaid rent and utilities have been weighing heavily on many California renters and their landlords who've been feeling the financial impacts of COVID-19. But the good news is there is help available to keep families housed and ease some of the related worries. Jeffrey Ross is the Deputy Director for the California Department of Housing and Community Development. He's here now to tell us about the California Rent Relief Program, how it works, and who can benefit. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning.
Good morning. So let's talk about the California COVID-19 Rent Relief Program. What is it and how does it work?
Well, thank you. The California COVID-19 Rent Relief Program is designed to provide financial assistance to income-qualified renters experiencing housing instability as a result of the pandemic. Really, what it can do is any eligible renter and their landlord can apply for assistance and can receive 100% rental payments for any unpaid rents or utilities owed. The renters and the landlords can find out if they're eligible by applying or going to the Housing is Key website.
So you said renters and their landlords can apply. Is this still going on now where they can apply for future rent issues?
Yes, it is. In fact, anyone that is concerned about their rent can go on to housingiskey.com, or they can actually call our number, which is 833-430-2122. and see if they're eligible. And if they're eligible, they can go ahead and submit an application. And the program is really going to continue to run until we run out of funding.
Jeffrey, we know that the financial impacts have really hit some families very hard, and that includes the renters and their landlords. What are some of the common situations people are finding themselves in that's causing a lot of this worry?
Right. It's not uncommon, unfortunately, for folks to have one or two unexpected expenses hit their household in a month or so, and then that causes them to have to choose what payments can they make. And we know with the pandemic, folks have had reduced hours, they've lost jobs, there's been additional household expenses, and so a lot of these have really forced folks to either fall behind on rent or really have to make hard decisions about whether or not what bills are going to get paid. And so one of the good things is that we have this program available that if folks find themselves in that situation, one of the things that we can assist with is being able to pay the rent or the utilities. So that way households can hopefully focus on other things that they need to be able to do and know that their rent or their utilities are being covered.
Can you give us any details or criteria on who exactly can qualify?
Generally, without getting too technical, a landlord that knows a tenant's been struggling can apply. And then what we try to do is we try to make sure that we connect with that tenant. So certainly if a landlord knows all the ways for us to reach out and coordinate with the tenant, that's very helpful. If a landlord and tenant themselves apply together, that's optimal, but tenants can certainly apply individually. But what we want to make sure that folks are doing is that they come into the program and they look at the criteria, and this is a statewide program. So what we're really trying to make sure is that folks that make less than 80% of their area median income, and that varies. That's why I'm not going to give you a number, but they can go on to the Housing is Key website and be able to very quickly ascertain whether or not they're eligible. And once they are, they can submit a full application.
Jeffrey, one of the goals here is to make sure that people can stay housed. And if you're not paying your rent, you're likely going to be worried that you could be evicted. How does that play into this rent relief program, especially if maybe they've already received an eviction notice?
Right. The rules have changed a bit. From October 1st on, really anyone that is behind on their rent really needs to be able to pay 100% of their rent. And that could mean that some folks have received an eviction notice. If you've received an eviction notice or you're afraid of receiving one, it's really important that you work with your landlord immediately and really let them know, I'm either applying to or intending to apply to the California COVID-19 Rent Relief Program. Being able to do that, especially within 15 days of receiving that notice, will help be able to stop the eviction process. Landlords can evict tenants for non-payment of rent, but one thing that they must do right now, under the modified rental protections that are in place really for the next 6 months, is that they really need to be able to demonstrate that they've tried to receive assistance with their tenant for that unpaid rent. And the way they do that is to go in and apply for the California COVID-19 rent relief program. And so that's why it's really critically important that landlords and tenants understand this, and that if an application by a landlord is submitted, the tenant will be notified, and the tenant needs to be able to respond and participate in that application.
All right.
Or if the tenant is receiving an eviction notice without that application, they really need to be able to communicate to the landlord of their intent to participate in the program.
All right, Jeffrey Ross, thanks so much for that information. And if you want to learn more about California's rent relief program, just visit housingiskey.com.
There's much more to come when